Hello, and welcome to another edition of Golden Eagles Sports Report.
Tonight we'll be discussing the number 17 ranked women's volleyball team, men's soccer's postseason run, and men and women's basketball hot starts to the season.
Golden Eagles Sports Report starts right now. Good evening, Marquette. I'm Amy Galashewski.
And I'm Tyler Peters.
This past weekend, the Marquette women's volleyball team faced both the Butler Bulldogs and Xavier Musketeers to wrap up its 4-game road trip. The Golden Eagles won both games in straight sets and improved to 24-5 on the season and 14-2 in Big East play.
With that, we want to welcome in one of our women's volleyball analysts, Zoe Comerford. Zoe, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Tyler.
So Zoe, what were your overall impressions of the team's 4-game road trip this past week?
So they did really well on their 4-game road trip. So they won 12 sets out of 13, which is pretty good. The only set they dropped was to Villanova, which is the first set dropped to a Big East opponent since Creighton. So they did pretty well in that aspect. And also their hitting percentage, their worst hitting percentage was .156 in that game against Villanova, the first set. And that's why they lost that first set. But like comparatively, this whole season, their hitting percentage has been .318. So I'm not a math major, but doing the math, they're pretty dominant compared to their opponents because their opponents aren't getting that .318 during even one set, but they've had it collectively as a whole season. So that's pretty impressive, and I definitely have seen them grow throughout the season in that respect.
Great, and the teams have now had 2 games. They have 2 games remaining on the season. Both those games are at the Al McGuire Center. What does Marquette have to do in order to finish the season on a high note versus both Seton Hall and St. John's?
Okay, this is definitely a cliche, but I think they just need to keep doing what they're doing. They're being very successful doing what they're doing. They're number 17, which is the highest in their program history of Marquette volleyball, so that's pretty impressive. And I think that if they want to get that number 16 seed, that would mean they would host the NCAA tournament, the first and second rounds. They really need to beat Creighton in the Big East championships. So that's kind of what their goal should be because they're obviously currently number 17. So I definitely think they need to keep up their consistent serving, their confidence with that. And then also they've struggled on defense a little bit. So they really need to just be confident on their defense and like get all over the floor and try to get those digs and saves.
I agree. Looking back overall for the season for the Golden Eagles, I know that we've talked about a lot who the MVP of this team is. Who do you think has been the X factor for this team this season?
So obviously you could talk about Jenna Rosenthal, Anna Hawk, Martha Konovatov, and Allie Barber as the main players, but I think the X factor this season has definitely been Hope Wirch. She's really good on the service aces. So she had, in the game against Villanova, there were 14 total service aces, and she had 8 of those. So she really comes in clutch when they need her, and when the team's not doing so hot and they are down, she comes in and she gets the team's energy up. And if she's on her game, the rest of the team is on their game. So I definitely don't see them dropping another set the rest of this conference season.
Solid choice there, Zoe. Thanks for your insight as always. We're going to take a quick break and swing it back to Amy. Amy, take it away.
Thanks, Tyler. Before we head to break, we wanted to highlight some news regarding the men's and women's cross-country teams. Both teams' 2018 seasons concluded this past weekend at the NCAA Great Lakes Regional, hosted by Indiana State. The men took 15th place overall and had 4 top 100 finishers, and the women finished in 23rd place. All right, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we'll be talking some Marquette men's soccer and their incredible postseason run and women's basketball hot start to the season. So don't go anywhere because Golden Eagles Sports Report will be right back.
Welcome back to the Golden Eagles Sports Report. Once again, I'm Tyler Peters.
And I'm Amy Galashewski. Marquette's men's soccer's postseason run has come to an end after a 2-0 loss at Georgetown in the Big East Championship game. The Hoyas scored once in each half, the first goal coming in the 11th minute and the second in the 70th minute. Marquette had their chances with 8 corners while outshooting the Hoyas 10-9. Now, let's take a look at some final thoughts from Coach Bennett.
All right, never easy after one like that, but focus on the memorable postseason run, the adversity your guys faced, and kind of wrap up the season as a whole.
Yeah, I think first and foremost, I'd like to thank the seniors. I think the seniors this year have done a fantastic job, whether they've played a lot, whether they've played a little, and Kirby taking over a managerial job. I think we've got a really good group of young men, and I think they've handled themselves, and they've worked diligently to put the program in a place where we can feel really proud about. And obviously today it didn't go the way we wanted to. I think guys speaking to Brian Weiss, the Georgetown coach, they weren't comfortable until even after they scored the second goal. They weren't that comfortable. So I thought we didn't play necessarily well enough to win. And on the day, you've got to play well enough to win. But by no means will that discredit what we've done in terms of the last 7 or 8 games, putting the quality of play and just the feel about our program has been unbelievably positive, and we've had some unbelievably memorable moments, in the last certainly in the month of last part of October and into November.
Well, congrats on a strong finish and getting back to the Big East final once again.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks.
Now joining me in the locker room is one of our men's soccer analysts, Matti Adams. Matti, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
All right, Matti, so these last 2 times these teams faced each other was at Valley Fields, and that last match that they played ended in a draw after 90 minutes and after 2 overtime periods. How did yesterday's matchup in the final of the Big East tournament differ from the style of play that they played a little over a month ago?
Yeah, so during the regular season game where Marquette played Georgetown, they were given a red card 3 minutes into the second half, so then they had to play with only 10 men for the majority of the second half and both of the overtime periods. So that definitely was an obstacle that Marquette had to overcome. It also was occurring during a rainstorm, so that was another problem that both teams had to overcome. There was a lot of intensity in that game, and that carried over into the Marquette-Georgetown game in the Big East tournament. There were a lot of shots on goal by Marquette right in the beginning, but then Georgetown scored off of a corner in the 10th minute, and after that it was a lot harder for Marquette to find their rhythm. Georgetown possessed the ball for the most of the rest of the game, and they ended up scoring again, so that was how the game ended, yeah.
Interesting indeed. Marquette was the first team in the Big East tournament action to advance to the final on consecutive penalty kick shootouts. Matti, in your opinion, what does this mean to the men's soccer program?
I think this shows how well the team can do under pressure. Any time that a game goes into penalty kicks, it is a lot of pressure on both teams. So the fact that Marquette was able to overcome that pressure and win not once but twice, and it went past just the 5 shots in both games. The first time they had to go into penalty kicks, it took 9 shots from both teams, and then the second one it took 12. So that showed how relentless the Marquette team was in both of those games.
I myself was nervous watching that. Thankfully, Marquette came out on top.
Me too.
Marquette senior goalkeeper Luis Barraza made 2 saves in his final collegiate game. As Barraza closes out this chapter of his career, what were some of the highlights of his senior season?
It's hard to point to one moment. Obviously, he had a great season, awarded the Big East Goalkeeper of the Year. I think one game that you can point to that was really good for him was the game against DePaul at home on October 31st. He had 9 saves during that game, which is incredible. And then, like we just talked about, both of the penalty kick games, the goalie is a critical component in penalty kick shootouts. So the fact that he was able to come up and make that tremendous impact for the team was a really good thing for him.
And it looks like he'll have pro aspirations moving on to this next stage of his career.
Definitely.
All right, thanks, Matti. We're going to take a quick break, and we're going to swing it back to Amy to talk at the desk for Marquette's women's basketball.
Thanks, Tyler. Over the past week, the Marquette women's basketball team faced South Dakota State, Montana State, and Northern Iowa at the Al McGuire Center, winning all 3 of those games in commanding fashion. Let's take a look at the highlights from the squad's win against the South Dakota State Jackrabbits. Marquette took on South Dakota State's season opener, wins the tip. Senior Danielle King taking it down the court, jumper for 2. Now on the defensive end of things, an amazing save from Erica Davenport. Here comes Amani Wilborn with the layup. We have Wilborn again right here, gives it to Natisha Heidman on the outside, goes for 3, and sinks it. That was the first of the 5 3-pointers that she had on the night. This time, Heidman gives the ball to Isabel Spingola, and another 3 from Marquette. Wilborn here takes it in, looks for the outside for Danielle King. She goes for 3, and she nails it. This time we have Spingola in the corner. She looks to King. King takes it in. She looks to the outside again, gives it back to Spingola. Spingola for 3. Swisher goes right in. Here we have King. She passes to Lauren Van Clunen. Now it's her chance for 3, and it's in. The team has been on fire when it has come to 3-pointers here in the Al. Heidman stops. She looks for Davenport. Davenport then fumbles with the ball, but then quickly recovers and looks for that layup. Now we have King taking it past the defense, layup off the backboard. She sure is the king of making things look easy. The final score here at the Al was the Golden Eagles 91, the Jackrabbits 52.
This past weekend wasn't much different for Marquette as they had their way against both opponents. Let's take a quick look at the weekend recap, and our very own Chris Reisner has the story.
A little interesting fact to put in there. As blocked and cuts through the defense and gets the easy floating layup.
The Marquette women's basketball team is off to a hot start. This past weekend, they defeated Montana State and Northern Iowa by a combined margin of 91 points.
We have the athleticism, we have, the heart to be able to get tips and deflections. And when we're not playing that way, once we start getting back into that pace, I think our team really feeds off that offensively, so our defense makes our offense better.
Chloe Murata put up her first double-figure scoring performance with 11.
We brought the juice today. We came out, we went strong. Our starting 5 did really well coming off the bench, and so it was good. And a lot of bench players as well, like Amanda McKay came out, and she had some great outlets at 6'4", coming down the court with the ball. That's great to see. It's impressive.
The freshman also corralled the team-high 8 rebounds against Montana State.
Yeah, rebounding, I'd like to say that it's kind of my thing. So I look for the boards on offense, defense, and that's one of the things we focus on a team as well. And so coming off the bench, I want to make sure that I do that for my team and get those rebounds.
Reigning Big East Player of the Year, Alizea blocked and led all scorers with a combined 45 points over the weekend. Marquette moves on to face the Miami Hurricanes in the preseason NIT semifinal.
I think it's an awesome opportunity for our team. They're a fantastic basketball team. They're top 25. They're very big. So it's a very different matchup for us than we've had yet this year. So it's going to be a phenomenal test and obviously an emotional one as you go back. Half my staff coached there or was around there, but it's going to be really fun. And I think our team is excited for the opportunity and the challenge.
From the Al McGuire Center, Chris Reisner, Marquette Wire Sports.
All right, I want to welcome into the show one of our women's basketball analysts, Shane Hogan. Shane, it's a pleasure to have you on.
Great to be back.
For the second straight game, the number 19 Golden Eagles had 6 players in double figures. What does this array of options mean for Coach Keeger and her squad?
Well, I think it really speaks to how deep this team is. When one player's not producing one night, someone else can step in, pick up the slack, and you have your production right away. There's so much talent on this team. You go down the list, everyone can produce for them, and I know that makes Coach Keeger happy, and it's a credit to her and her staff.
With this team's power ranking, there's no doubt that they have a high-powered offense with scoring in the triple digits this past weekend. How does this team carry that momentum and winning mentality against number 25 Miami?
Yeah, well, clearly all things went right for the Golden Eagles this weekend with 3 wins, averaging 98 points in those 3 wins, which is an insane number for college basketball. But they have to keep the positives going. They shot well, they played good defense, and in order to get a good test against a number 25 team like Miami, they have to do all those things right. And it showed that they can do that this weekend. 3 really impressive wins to start their season.
I agree. The Golden Eagles are the only Division I program to have 5 active 1,000-point scorers, and the defending national champions, the Notre Dame Irish, are close behind them with 4 active scorers at 1,000 points. So what does this mean for the team to have 5 1,000-point scorers in the starting lineup?
Well, first, it's an incredible accomplishment individually, so congratulations to all of them, with Danielle King being the last to reach that 1,000-point mark. But it just shows, again, how talented this team is. 5 1,000-point scores in their career, something no other team can say, not even the defending champions. So again, credit to Coach Keeger and her staff, but really an individual and team accomplishment, very impressive. Indeed.
Lastly, Shane, Miami is a powerful team with 7 players over 6 feet tall. How is Marquette going to combat this size differential in the semifinals of the preseason WNIT? I know we saw versus Grand Valley State in that exhibition game. Yep. They struggled against their height.
Absolutely, and that was a tough matchup to really start their season. We're not counting that in the records besides those 3 other wins, but this is really their first challenge. A top 25 team, a lot of size, a lot of talent, like Marquette. And in order to get kind of underneath that height and beat them, they have to play fast, which is kind of their style. They like that up-tempo style. And you've got to spread the floor. When you've got a lot of bigs on the floor, spread the floor, get your shooters open. They did that really well this weekend. You saw the 3-point percentage was really impressive. And I think they've got a great chance to beat a number 25 team. Everything's going right so far for the Golden Eagles.
Will be interesting to see what happens. As always, great insight, Shane.
Thank you.
We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we'll be talking men's basketball's hot start to the season in the new Fiserv Forum. So don't go anywhere, because Golden Eagles Sports Report will be right back. Two games in, and this Marquette men's basketball team is already 2-0, and both wins have come rather comfortably.
They opened the season against the University of Maryland, Baltimore County,
who you may remember last year as this first 16 seed to ever upset a 1 seed in the NCAA tournament.
Our very own Chris Reisner was on hand to recap the action.
In its inaugural game at the new Fiserv Forum, the Marquette men's basketball team took down UMBC 67-42, and defense was key.
Well, the story of the game was our defense, and we haven't won a ton of games in the past on the defensive end. And on a night where our offense wasn't as good as it's going to be, our defense was very sound.
Marquette held the Retrievers to shoot just under 23% from the field. Sophomore forward Theo John put up the first double-double of his career, posting 11 points and a team-high 10 boards and 3 blocks.
One of my roles on this team is to defend the basket, and that's meeting shots at the rim. I've always tried to be a shot blocker, and I got to bring that to this team and just help my teammates out with that.
I thought he gave us an incredible spark off the bench, and to play just over 20 minutes and to get a double-double to not only be a presence around the rim, but a lot of the times he was away from the basket, having to guard shooting fives or on switches guards, and he handled those situations really well.
Several Marquette players made their debut, including redshirt freshman Joey Hauser. The highly sought-after recruit scored his first basket on this three, with brother Sam right there to congratulate him.
The strength of our team is our team, and we have a group of guys who on any given night can be the spark plug and catalyst for our team. I don't know who it's going to be on any given night, but we need all of our guys with the egos of I'm important, I'm valuable, and I'll be ready to do whatever it takes for our team to win.
Alongside Jack Phillips, Chris Reisner, Marquette Wire Sports.
Then on Saturday, Marquette looked to keep the momentum going against the Bethune County University.
Our own Megan Rock reports on the action.
It's been a hot start for Marquette men's basketball as the squad has yet to lose in the new Pfizer Forum. It was an even hotter performance for junior guard Marcus Howard as he finished with 7 threes on the night.
Game, Coach Wojo and I talked a lot about, me continuing to be aggressive, me transitioning into playing the point guard position this year. He still wants me to maintain being aggressive, so I think just my approach each and every game when I come out from when the ball gets in the air is to be aggressive, and I don't think I've lost that. I just think, I have to continue to do that, and my teammates do a great job of reminding me to maintain that aggressiveness throughout the game.
It was an overall team effort for the Golden Eagles as almost every player seemed to have an impact on the court. According to head coach Steve Wojciechowski, one of those important playmakers happened to be Ed Morrow.
Turned it over, and we had about 3 guys on the court quit on the play, and we had 1 guy who didn't, and his name was Ed Morrow. And that was one of the best plays I've had a player make since I've been the coach at Marquette.
From the Pfizer Forum, Megan Rock, Marquette Wire Sports.
We already heard his voice. Now joining us in the studio is our very own Chris Reisner.
How we doing tonight, Chris?
Somewhere between better and the best. It's basketball season. How are you two doing today?
Living the dream.
All right, let's get into it. We saw some impressive performances over this past week. What did you learn about the team in this matchup against UMBC and the following game against BCU?
I learned that there's some viability to the law of averages. You saw in the first game against UMBC, Marcus Howard went, 2 of 12 from behind the three-point line. He really turned that around. The post-game presser, Coach Wojo said that if there's one thing he's not worried about, it's Marcus Howard shooting. He ends up going 4 of 7 in the first half against BCU, ends with 7 threes on the day. And I was on the call with Shane Hogan, and Shane did a really good job on his segment, by the way, shout out. But one thing I think that made the difference there is in the first game, I think Marcus Howard had a little too much space. Maybe there's that first game jitters. I like to call it paralysis by analysis, and basketball is not a thinking game. You just got to play and go with the flow. So he turned that around, and all of averages, that's what I took away.
Nice insight. A talking point this season has been the increased depth of this team. Which player do you think has made the strongest impact so far this year?
So there's so many I could go with. Obviously, Marcus Howard. He scored 37 points last game. The Hauser brothers are great. Joey, as a freshman, is so polished offensively. He's been impressive. But I'm going to go with Theo John. And I'm going to talk a little bit about him later in the new Final Take segment. But I think Theo John, the presence he brings to this team, he's shown he can be a rim protector. He's built like a chiseled brick house. What is he, 6'9", 250, just muscle? He adds a dimension to this team that they really haven't had as a defensive center and anchor that really goes a long way.
Marquette goes on the road to play the Indiana Hoosiers on Wednesday. What are you looking to see in this matchup, and what does Marquette need to do to leave Bloomington with a win?
So this will be the Golden Eagles' real first test of the season because, let's face it, we're being honest, UMBC, they had that one great game they're notorious for against Virginia. And then Bethune-Cookman, their entire team is pretty much transfers from junior colleges. So not the schools most known for their basketball programs and history. Indiana, the Hoosiers are a storied program. They play in the Big Ten Conference, one of the better conferences in the country. It'll be a real test. And what Marquette needs to do is they need to turn this into their game. They need to turn this into a three-point shootout. So Indiana's 4 leading scorers are all average double figures. in Romeo Langford, Justin Smith, Nick Fitzner, and Jawan Morgan. But what those guys have in common, none of them have made more than 1 3 in the first 2 games of the season. So their 4 leading scorers have combined for 3 threes. And compare that with Marquette, they've got a plethora of 3-point shooters. If they can turn that into a 3-point shootout, benefits the Golden Eagles.
Yeah, definitely the toughest opponent for this Golden Eagles squad so far. Good stuff, Chris.
And don't leave just yet, because we're going to end the show with a brand new segment. Stay with us, because Chris is going to give us his final take right after the break.
One thing that makes sports great is the storyline. The heat of competition and battle intertwined with the art of storytelling is what we do as sports journalists. This year's men's basketball team at Marquette has all kinds of narratives, whether it be the flashy point guard that's a threat anytime he steps over half court, an explosive scorer that puts up points in a hurry. Listed at a generous height of 5'11", how far can he lead this team? Or is the story the duo of Wisconsin natives, the Stevens Point area senior high brothers, or should I say the Spash Bros? They probably just go by Sam and Joey, but at 6'8" and 6'9", they're versatile enough to play and defend almost every position on the floor, and they can sure hit that 3-ball. But I'm not convinced that's the major storyline right now either. I happen to be studying abroad in Athens next semester, so it's fitting that through 2 games, the one player that's been the story to me is built like the mythological Hercules himself. His name derived from the Greek term theos, meaning related to God or deities, and whether you believe in the man above or not, can't deny his presence above the rim. Am I right, Jesuit institution fitting? Anyway, sophomore Theo John is shooting an absurdly efficient clip of 89% from the field. Pair that with almost 10 points, 7 boards, and a couple blocks per game in only 17 minutes, you've got a legit center that can impact the game on both ends of the court at a high rate. It's early, I know, but he's shown to be a rim protector, a beast on the boards, much improved in terms of his skill with that smooth post jump hook, and he can even hedge or switch on the pick and roll as a capable perimeter defender. If Theo John can just clean up his foul trouble issues and maybe get his free throw percentage up a few notches, this program has its big men for the next 3 years. Call me a prisoner of the moment, but the talent level at the guard, wing, and now post position, come March, the rest of the country better watch out, because Theo John and the Golden Eagles will be soaring high.
Wow, Chris, drop the wireless mic. That was some incredible stuff.
I appreciate you, Tyler.
Really got the juices flowing there.
You're definitely right on that one. And we're out of time. So on that note, we'll be back next Monday night. I'm Amy Galashewski.
And I'm Tyler Peters. Good night, Marquette.